Hey everyone, welcome to the HASH8 podcast. I am the Bitcoin Broski, and today I am joined by a very special guest. This gentleman is on the leadership team of one of the largest mining companies in the world. Welcome to the show, Philip Salter from Genesis Mining. Philip, welcome.
Oh, yeah, nice to be here.
Hey, thanks for making the time. Lately, you've been putting out some awesome videos that have been very helpful, mining related, DeFi related, ETH related. It's been great. What inspired you, just to kick things off here, to get more active on social media like that?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'm not sure how much praise those videos deserve. They're kind of those two minute long kind of just quickly recorded kind of insights into kind of aspects that I'm personally find really interesting in the space right now. Good question. What actually motivated me to do them? I mean, I've been in the crypto space, specifically in mining, for like 6 years now, and I just remember how in the early times when I really got into it in 2014, when I really got into it, like there's so much knowledge that you have to gather to get like the understanding of what this industry is all about, and the industry isn't old enough yet to have all these established kind of whatever documentaries and interesting kind of things, podcasts to listen to. Now we have those. And yeah, I thought just every now and then giving maybe a bit of a deep insight into a very specific topic or related to mostly mining and crypto in general might just be really interesting to people in the intermediate, let's call it intermediate stages of getting to know Bitcoin.
Sure. Well, it's very helpful. You know, like you said, there's not a lot of resources that are out there. So the more the merrier in that sense. So Philip, how did you get into mining in the first place?
Mining, it's a great topic. I remember mining one whole Bitcoin in 2011, actually. I mined it running my GTX 260
Wow.
that gave me back then. And it was a very bad card for mining, right? It was very bad for mining even back then. And it took me half a year to mine one Bitcoin.
Wow.
Worth, I guess.
Half a year to mine one Bitcoin on an outdated GPU.
Yeah. I should have put that in printed that Bitcoin out and put it in a gold casing or something. I actually have no idea where that went.
Right. Well, I mean, it's been a long road since then. You know, now with Genesis, you guys are, you guys mine, a few more than one Bitcoin a year, operating one of the largest operations really in the world. So how is that journey for you, going from, mining your first Bitcoin in 2011 on that one GPU to now managing operations for such a massive mining company?
Yeah, it's been what a ride it's been. I'm sure you've heard that one before, that sentence. Yeah, yeah. So like I said, yeah, I got into Bitcoin and just like getting the idea of it and so on in 2011. I got interested in it, but then I don't know, it didn't really have too much to do with it, and I thought, oh, okay, interesting, fun little thing. Maybe it'll be used in games someday instead of like World of Warcraft Gold or something.
Sure.
But that never happened, and things kind of died down for a bit. But I was always monitoring the Bitcoin price in the background, seeing how it was going. You know, every now and then it had these huge spikes. The first one from $2 to $16, and it was like, whoa, what happened here? And I guess the FOMO hit me. The fear of missing out really hit me in 2013, I suppose. Like when the spike was just about to start, that went from $100 to $1,000, and I got in. I got in with the, with my student funds back then, and I really got in. I really got interested in it, and that kind of from there, and it kind of took over, let's say, too many parts of my life. And yeah, so started searching around what kind of companies are out there, like how can I involve myself in this topic more, and yeah, Genesis Mining came up, and I joined in when Genesis was still very, very young. We were like just a group of like 5 people or so, and just kind of got going, seeing what was going on, flying to Iceland and Bosnia and all the early places where we started out very early, just like. I think I can definitely say that it's been really learning by doing in the mining industry. I come from a software development background, and was writing business software and so on, and then getting into mining. Talking about transformers and data centers and so on. That was new in the beginning, and yeah, I guess uphill from there. We expanded further and further, got into more and more different data centers, different regions, saw the different generations of miners and trying to work with them as best as humanly possible. And yeah, it's amazing how far the industry has come since then.
I mean, yeah, I think that my first experience with Bitcoin mining, and this is probably true for a lot of people, was the video that I saw on, I forget which news channel it was, but it was the tour of Genesis's Iceland facility,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that, I think that's still one of the most watched videos when it comes to Bitcoin mining. I think that there's a lot of people that's their first impression. And it's look, man, it's a well done video. It's grand. The idea of having all of those machines in one place, it's exciting. So, being that you were one of the first five and you guys scaled it to what it is today, I'd love to get your perspective on just a high level overview for anyone who, maybe has been living under a rock and doesn't know what Genesis is or what you guys do, just a high level overview of what the company does.
Yeah, no worries. So Genesis Mining is a mining company. Genesis comes from the Genesis block, the first block in a blockchain. And what we got big on is cloud mining. So we do all the big work of finding the right site for the data center, getting the power and the partners right, designing the data center, building it, buying the miners, putting them all in. And when everything's running, then we generate hash rate, and then we sell contracts on our website for anyone sitting at home who doesn't really want to get that technically involved or is in areas with too expensive power where you couldn't mine at home anyway, to kind of buy a piece of that and to kind of mine some coins from home, basically. So it's a really, really easy way for I'd say newcomers to get into the market, to really without too much technical knowledge, just start mining and start having a wallet, seeing coins coming in, starting to deal with crypto. I think it's a really, really good jump starter for many people to get into the whole industry. But that's what we got known as. I think our first slogan was the world's largest script hash rate provider, because we were big in Litecoin. We had a GPU farm in Bosnia and we were selling Litecoin, Dogecoin contracts. Yeah, but we've really come a long way since then. Of course, now we have all the major proof of work mineable coins, and also outside of the cloud mining industry. Of course, if you get larger and larger scale at some point, it allows us to go into more institutional kind of business, getting let's say the large customers, kind of B2B business, not just small little contracts, but actually having deals on data centers and land and kind of larger mining infrastructure. And also basically we do everything connected to mining, right? Also the software part is also a really big part of it. So we develop our solutions for maintaining, monitoring the farm, optimizing the miners, firmwares, GPU, operating systems. We've basically done it all. And we're thinking, hey, might as well offer it as services to anyone who's interested. So we're kind of exploring all these different directions that you could consider mining.
I want to dive. There's a bunch of different things that I want to touch on here. First, just with the operating system. So I know you guys made the announcement a couple of months ago that the enterprise solution was going to be released to select clients, I believe, and that's already been done. So how has traction been on that? The operating system game, to me, from just my perspective, it seems like there are solutions that are needed. So I can see how a product like yours will find a good product market fit. What's the feedback that you guys are getting, and why now?
I've got to jump in real quick to clear up a very important misconception that I've never been able to publicly, clear up the rumor. Genesis Hive is a product from Genesis Mining. We started marketing it in 2015, and it's our monitoring product that we also use to monitor all our mining farms. And we've been marketing it sometimes more, sometimes less actively to large customers. And what you've been talking about now is our new release of Hexa, which is the revamped version of Hive, rewritten from scratch with our new knowledge of how things could have been done better in 2015. And that's going interesting so far. We still haven't completely launched it, and we're still kind of in the final evaluation phase before we really get people in. But the operating system, please be careful with this, but there's an operating system out there for GPU miners called Hive OS, and they're a good team of guys. They're all fine. Some very fine Russians there. It's a great system, but it has nothing to do with Genesis Hive. Just to make it clear. But, people are actually
Also,
congratulating me. Oh, Hive OS is great. I'm like, yeah, man, it's nice, but it's not from us actually.
yeah, they have nothing to do with Genesis Hive. They have nothing to do with Hive blockchain in Canada. They've just got a very good way of picking names that seem to be popular. Anyways, like that's Hive is a very popular GPU OS. There's no doubt about it. But Hexa, and this is where I think there's a huge opportunity. The ASIC OS monitoring and management system game, if you will, it's lacking. Right. There's a lot of machines that are still yet to be supported. And there's, clearly an opportunity because as these facilities get more and more industrial, you wouldn't ever have a traditional data center without some kind of institutional operating system. Right. So it only makes sense that there would be a solution.
Yes, I think let's call it a monitoring and management system. I think it's really important. And I think this is maybe one of the final frontiers of the institutional mining business that hasn't really been, let's say, conquered yet. I mean, mining hardware is getting more and more better and stable, and there's lots of competition in that market. Mining like custom firmwares and like custom OSs, like optimized miners, there's kind of it's a bit hacky market, but shape. There's lots of competition in that market anyway. But actually in mining, like monitoring and management systems, there's a bunch out there. If you Google it, you'll find lots of results, but they're usually made by kind of enthusiasts, by kind of home miners mining their garage, optimized for their operations, but they're just like small operations. And the really big hitters have all not released any of their internal systems that are used for monitoring, and or operate in areas in the world where manpower is so cheap that you don't need a very well worked out system. Or also in, let's say, shady environments where having proper analytics and data retention is the most important part, because things just work out,
Yes. Yeah. Better to not keep all the stats.
Yeah. Yeah. Genesis, as a Western miner, we mine almost exclusively outside of China. It's one of the things that I do have to say. We've always been kind of in the West and very closely connected to the Western audience from our customer side and also from our operational side. Iceland, Sweden, America, and lately a bit of Kazakhstan also, but at least it's not China. From this point of view, we've always had to deal with like high labor costs, high administration costs, and you can't just put a team of 100 people somewhere in like Sweden or Iceland. It just doesn't happen. So our whole software systems are kind of geared to reduce the amount of maintenance labor that you need and maximize the amount of automation technology that we can use in our data centers. And we built up that infrastructure when we were really small, and I think it benefited us pretty good in scaling up and completing audits and all this kind of stuff, where years later you notice, oh, actually having that data from 2 years ago is actually pretty helpful. And so yeah, I'm still pretty proud of what we've built, and I think Hexa might really be a really good product for people doing mining in a more regulated landscape than maybe traditional mining has been in.
So leaving China out of this part of the conversation, a question that I have, maybe you know this, I just popped up. When you're thinking of the amount of labor or laborers per megawatt, let's say, maybe that's not how you track it internally. How many technicians or staff do you need per megawatt of hardware?
I think it's a good metric to have. Obviously, the more and more megawatts you have, the less people you need per megawatt, right? Like like when you're really small, you still need at least 2 guys, so someone can be on holiday. Okay, but when it scales up, you definitely need less than a person per megawatt if you have the right system, and if you have, let's say, not hardware that's failing all the time, right? Yeah, so our calculation is usually like 1 maintenance guy per 3 megawatts.
Okay.
It's actually fine to run normal operation unless something bad happens, right? If there's some kind of catastrophe or something, or some installation happens and new miners are arriving, obviously then you want as many people as possible. But just to keep things running, that's not a problem. You can have a 20 megawatt farm, have 5 to 7 people, 2 shifts. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's very, I mean, it's very interesting. I've always wondered, obviously the way that mining facilities are built is so much more efficient. And the way that they're operated, frankly, is so much more efficient than a traditional data center. I mean, you're talking generally, a fifth to an eighth of the cost to build. And then there's less overhead when it comes to the OpEx as well. So, it's always fascinating to me. I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, if you will. I think that anytime it gets brought up, it becomes a focal point of mining conversations. There's a lot of strong feelings about cloud mining, and there's literally no better person to talk to about it than you, right? You, as part of Genesis, you guys have the largest cloud mining business in the world. You are, the company is a pioneer of the industry. So where do you think that the negativity comes from around cloud mining? And from a business perspective, how do you guys overcome that hurdle when you're selling the service?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a delicate question too. But I think it's really good that we're talking about it. I think there's several dimensions to it. I think one of the dimensions is the huge amount of scams and pyramid systems that we've seen in the space. I mean, they all die down after a while, and they usually only grow when there's a big market hype going on and everyone's going crazy and trying to buy and just believe any offer they see on the internet. But especially when we were still smaller, we had to really fight with these, because if people Google, Bitcoin mining, cloud mining, whatever, and they get 10 results and they all have amazing returns, and Genesis is kind of, mediocre. Of course, they're going to go to the major returns, especially if they're not skilled enough to see the risks. And we spend a lot of time and effort producing these kinds of videos, creating this kind of transparency, showing people the data centers, like, we really have miners. We're not a scam. Please believe us. And it really took a long time and just traction and being alive for as long as we have to really build this level of trust, and where people know, okay, they're not just going to take my money and run. So that's a very important dimension, I think. Which is kind of maybe the first one. Another part of the negativity, I'm not sure. I mean, there's lots of scams out there that kind of guarantee profit. These kind of ads. I've learned this simple trick, how earn $5,000 a day at the beach or something. Obvious scams, but
sure.
The thing is, an investment in the mining space is it's a risky business. No one's going to guarantee you any profits, and no one can look into the future, right? Anyone that invests into mining, even the big guys that invest, know that this is a high risk investment. It's not like a traditional investment in whatever, like real estate or something, like where you just expect it to go up slowly but steadily over time. It's a hit or miss business, and I think with cloud mining you have the issue. We always try to give the best offer we can, and we don't price our products what's the right term? Opportunistically, right? So, for example, the mining hardware manufacturers, they price their mining hardware depending on the profitability of their mining hardware.
Right.
What we buy the mining hardware, right? So obviously we're susceptible to that, but our margin that we add on top, of course, we have some, and our kind of operating costs, we keep it steady. So we just offer whatever the best product in the market is right now. That's our mission, to offer the best product. But in some kind of Bitcoin scenario where profitability is extremely high and everyone's just going for it because they're not really thinking it through too much, just like going for it. And then afterwards, like the market recovers, which means goes down, in the worst case even crashes, and returns aren't as people expected, then we get the bad emails and we get the negative feedback. And I think it's fair enough. Like, I'm not asking anyone to be happy, but it's, if you make an investment, it's your responsibility to check the investment and to kind of understand the space where you're going into. All we can do is offer a competitive product.
Sure. Now, do you find the product more suited to retail or institutional clients? I mean, well, I guess we can start with that one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm more on the mining, on the data center sides of things and on the technical side than like specifically in the details of our cloud mining business.
Mm-hmm.
I can try to answer, but take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
I think that institutional investors that want to invest in really large amounts would want to have more. They usually want to have more direct control or transparency on what's actually going on. So they're actually happy with having more overheads in like administering and understanding the product that they're getting into. And let's say a smaller kind of private person, retail kind of investor might be more interested in the fully finished product, all inclusive. Don't worry about anything, just like pay and then just like get your daily mining rewards. So I think there's different products possible for both clients.
Sure. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys also have a pretty big consulting side of your business, right? There are a lot of large clients that will come to you and seek your guidance on setting up facilities of their own, and that seems to be like a smart play for if you're a fund or you're looking to gain Bitcoin mining exposure. Nowadays, there's so many ways that you can get involved with mining yourself. I mean, bit of a bottleneck right now with ASIC hardware, to get that from China, but that not being the case, or before that was an issue, that was definitely the play. I think is just a lot of funds were looking to mine Bitcoin themselves. Fidelity is a good example of that, right? Setting up their facilities in North America. So right now with the industry as it is, and you being on the operations side, are you guys still scaling? I mean, is this a rapid scale moment for Genesis, or are you guys just beefing up the current operations as they stand?
Well, we're always trying to optimize what we have. I mean, even with the S9 miners, which of course we also have some of them. Even with them, optimizations weren't finished after the first year of them coming out or so, but there were more and more like hardware-specific hacks and optimizations, vaulting and special new ideas coming out to improve them over time. So that's kind of an ongoing thing that always that's always kind of progressing and getting better. Deploying new data centers, definitely. We are in the process also of doing that. These are kind of larger, of course, slower moving projects. And of course, the switch of previous generation hardware to new generation hardware is of course also very resource intensive, and it also takes a long time just to upgrade. Also, you can't just like replace machines with new machines, because also the change in miner generation has also come with the complete design of the mining hardware, right? Now the miners have double sizes and they're using 3 times as much power. So that has a completely different density. They have different power plugs, all the small stuff. In the big scale, it still makes a big difference. So it needs redesign the data centers to a certain degree. And it's a big job to keep the hardware rollover kind of going.
That's a good point that you make, and it's something that obviously the layperson doesn't think about, right? When you're upgrading a facility, you're literally rebuilding a lot of it, right? That you have to, if you're every 3 years, you're going to be upgrading your equipment, and there are new specifications, new power draws, new density changes. It's not like you can just take one off the rack and put another one on. There's a lot extra that goes into it. I want to go ahead.
Hardware to higher power consumption, higher density, than to lower density, because if you have lower density, then you don't have enough rack space suddenly, then you're in more trouble. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
So shifting gears a bit, because I know you're not just a one-trick pony, right? You guys are not just a Bitcoin mining operation. Genesis has mined many different coins, offered many different contracts. Right now, ETH is going crazy.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, internally, how does this change anything for you guys? Like, how are you looking at what's going on with ETH and with DeFi? And are you adjusting your like corporate outlook over the next couple of years because of it?
This Ethereum hype, it's crazy. Did I see it correctly today in my ticker that it went up like $20 or $30 today?
Yeah, 470 right now, I think.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. it's been fun because we're like traditionally we're a GPU miner. Of course, we're going into ASIC. Bitcoin is one of our main businesses because everyone knows Bitcoin, everyone wants Bitcoin, but GPUs is like where our heart kind of lies.
Yep.
We used to mine Litecoin, like I said, and then Litecoin was like, oh, there's ASICs coming out. This is the end of the GPUs. GPUs are now just going to be trash. Just in time, what came out? X11 came out. X11 Dash.
Dash, yeah.
Just in time it came out. Like, we can switch from Litecoin mining to Dash mining, and everything was fine. And with new contracts, it was okay. We survived. Everything was fine. And then Dash ASICs were just about to come out. We were like, oh God, what are we going to do? Like Dash mining is about to end. And I think that it was Monero. And then Monero, some ASICs started coming out, and we're like, okay, just in time, Ethereum came out. And since then, actually, it's just been Ethereum as the main point. And now we're reaching a point, Ethereum might switch to proof of stake. Who knows when? And there's ASICs also out there, and profitability. It takes a long time for a GPU to ROI. What are we going to do? Now this DeFi comes out and explodes the transaction fees of Ethereum so much that it's like, right now, I think the most profitable dollar to return ratio is with Ethereum. It's absolutely mad, and it's great. Of course, it's changing things.
Yeah, this hype has been fantastic. The fun of all of this is just, it's so nice. I'm so happy that GPU miners are making money again, because crypto winter was one thing, Bitcoin sideways price action was another thing. I don't think either of those really compared to the pain that a lot of GPU miners went through over the last 2 years. It's tough because most of them are small. Most of them are paying, much more than an industrial rate on electricity. And they're putting a lot of their extra cash into it, right? So for them, I mean, it was a tough one. Yeah.
I really think the GPU community in mining in general is immensely important, because for so many of these coins that kind of got big, the first users are actually the miners. And they're also the ones, sharing configs and tuning updates and vBIOS mods and all this kind of stuff in online forums, and just like creating a discussion about the coin, and also creating a market for it, and kind of creating a demand for it, and just creating interest about it. So I really think it's very sad for me to see in some communities, to see kind of mining and also and even GPU mining being kind of discounted as just like a necessary evil for the survival of coins, even though they've been so instrumental in actually building the coins. Also, when things turn ASIC, I mean, sure, there's home miners buying ASICs, but it very quickly gets more industrial, especially because of the noise.
Yeah.
And it very quickly goes into larger, more centralized farms. And I think it's a necessary development. I think every coin has to go to ASICs to keep their safety. Look at ETC.
Yeah.
But this GPU mining phase that all the coins go through in the beginning, I think is also very, very important. And I have to agree with you. It's great that it's on crypto winter where so many people had trouble and so many miners had to drop out, that there's now another chance to kind of get back in the game.
So how are you guys viewing the FPGA sector and CPU mining? Have you guys looked into either of those two?
I find CPU mining is too expensive. So
okay.
I can't figure out a way to make CPU mining profitable in a mining data center, because you just have people with some Ryzen processors or whatever in their home computers competing with you. And it's really expensive. Like a CPU costs whatever, $300, but with everything around it to actually make it run, it gets much more expensive. Like the overhead auxiliary costs are too high. So no, we're not in CPU mining, and I can't see us getting into it unless something special happens. Regarding FPGAs, everyone's always talking about them, right? They're like that magical but somehow invisible step between GPUs and ASICs. Everyone's talking about that they have the secret FPGA. To be honest, I don't think it's a thing. I think there's some hobbyists that have FPGAs for whatever reason lying around. Who has that? Never mind. But have them lying around and kind of have fun and kind of trying to translate the GPU algorithms to FPGA. And then if they do it right, you can get slightly better efficiency at the same hash rate of a GPU with an FPGA. That's generally the formula. Same hash rate as the GPU, but slightly less power consumption, maybe 30% less, which is like, meh. But the purchase cost of the FPGAs is huge.
Yeah.
And I've never seen any FPGA system that allows like easy flashing of new, like call it software updates. for some reason, it always ends up having to solve the stuff and using a USB flash device and so on. No, I don't
Yeah.
believe in it.
Well, that's good to know. You'd mentioned the secret ASICs, and I think the secret ASICs and the FPGAs kind of go hand in hand. They're, I mean, seem to be mostly centralized in China, and they spring up on, hot plays that, GP miners start to talk about on Bitcoin Talk and in Discord and in Telegram, and they just get on them early and decimate the hash. Nervos and Handshake are two examples of those that had ASICs and FPGAs very, very early on in the chain's history, and it centralizes everything so quickly, and it puts GPU miners off entirely because they're on to the next one. Once a GPU miner, it's like you guys with Litecoin and Monero and all of those coins that you mentioned. The minute you sense that there's an ASIC coming on, it doesn't make sense for you to stick around, right? You're not going to compete with that, so you have to look for somewhere else to put your hash. I hope we see more GPU fair launches this season. There are spec plays that are always launching, but because of DeFi, and I mean, maybe you don't feel the same way. It seems like the shift in the focus of all of the money and all of the dev talent is going more towards, proof of stake.
Well, I don't want to disagree. I think there's lots of good work being done on proof of stake, but it's not working yet. And there's lots of people kind of working on other things too. It would be great if we managed to get an actually working consensus system that's not proof of work. As a enthusiast in the cryptocurrency space in general, and more than just a miner, of course,
Sure.
I love the idea of not needing mining, right? As a miner, of course, I'm rebelling against that, but obviously it would be great to have no power consumption and still have the same network security that we have with like Bitcoin. Haven't seen it yet. Let's see what Ethereum comes up with. From what I've seen so far, I can't help but being very cautious about this. I don't think it's coming anytime soon. They've got so many phases in this deployment plan, and each phase seems more crazy than the last.
Yeah.
I think mining is going to be around for a long time, and as a miner, I appreciate that a lot. But it's good to see the development happening at the side.
I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there. Hash rate's banking on mining being around for a long time, so we definitely don't want to see it go anywhere.
What we were saying about the secret ASICs, yeah, I think that's a huge problem. Like secret ASICs are very dangerous. We've seen it happen several times where they kind of crash networks.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not forget that Ethereum has a bunch of ASICs. Maybe they were secret in the beginning, now they're not. But still, GPU miners are mining it. So ASICs don't mean the death of a coin, especially if the ASICs only have like, I don't know, double the efficiency or triple the efficiency than GPUs, like they did with Ethereum, right? I think even the best Ethereum miner coming out, this Lynchy ASIC, I think it's still not better than like 5 times better than GPUs, which is like, sounds like a lot, but it's like manageable. When Bitcoin ASICs came out, they were like, 1,000 times better or something, or 100 times better, just like completely blowing GPUs out of the water. But if we have more ASIC resistant algorithms, yeah, it's another discussion for itself, right? ASIC resistant algorithms, but I think they allow for a nice handover period between GPUs and ASICs.
Sure. Well, now, Philip, you have a unique perspective. You're involved in conversations. You're seeing operations at scale that most people are just not ever going to get around, right? What are you seeing in the industry right now that is the most exciting to you?
You mean large scale mining? Some developments happening there?
Anything.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that one. That's a good question. There's so many things happening, but at the same time, there's not so much happening. People are still just building Bitcoin data centers and putting miners there. I think the biggest thing happening might be the move of miners from the east to the west, especially like out of China. I think that might be the biggest thing happening right now in crypto mining.
Yeah. So when you say to the west, from the east to the west,
east to west, north to the south,
are they making it? Are they making it to? I mean, they're moving out of Inner Mongolia now, right? There's the mandate that the government has ended some of the preferential power rates. So they're going to be moving, miners are going to be moving out of Inner Mongolia. There's obviously tons of facilities, large facilities that are springing up in Kazakhstan. Is that where most of the Chinese miners are going? Are they moving most of their equipment to Kazakhstan, or are they making it further west?
In my discussions with Chinese miners wanting to move out of China, a theme always seems to be that they have often tried to do it and they've kind of failed already. And that's why they're trying to contact Western companies to kind of help them do it. It's because just the business practices in China are so different, and the whole structures and the networks that they usually rely on to make things work in their country just don't work outside. And just like if you're a Western guy and you want to make something happen in China, you'd better have a good Chinese partner, right? It's the other way around too. Like if you're Chinese, you better have a good Western partner that knows how the West works. And with the West, I'm not sure if I'd count Kazakhstan in it, but maybe let's half count Kazakhstan and count the rest of the West as full. I think there's several reasons for this happening, and it's not just because of these power cuts in Mongolia. I think generally Bitcoin mining is becoming less quick, get rich quick, opportunistic kind of business. And it's becoming more of a more traditional, in the sense that it's a long-term infrastructure investment, that stability and low operating costs are more important than speed and making a quick good deal. And as soon as that starts happening, then suddenly the mining sites, for example, in Sweden, for example, in several places in USA like Texas and similar places that have extremely low power price and this high amount of political stability, where this kind of comes together, these places suddenly become far more attractive. They used to be hard to deal with because shipping from the miners produced in China to, let's say, America would cost you 4 weeks shipping time, and extra kind of imports, and building the facility is usually more expensive than in China because everything's cheap in China. And that would usually ruin your investment, because the first weeks count so much when a new miner arrives, and then in 6 months they're going to be off anyway. The new generation will be there, so your mining time might be reduced by a third or by a fifth or something, just because you're shipping it outside China and you can't do it. But nowadays we're looking at buying business models where you buy a new miner and you're expecting it to run for at least 2 years, probably more 3 years, right? Even the S9 miner ran
4
for
years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really seeing this industry becoming, let's call it slower, in the sense that everything takes longer, and China does not have the cheapest power prices. They have the cheapest labor and the cheapest construction prices and the fastest timelines, but they don't have the cheapest operating costs. They never have. It's just the time benefit that they have that made them so attractive. And also, of course, the more institutional people like banks, like you mentioned Fidelity, for example, also like just like, let's say, private investors or like conglomerates interested in getting into Bitcoin and mining because they're seeing it as something more serious now and not just some node coins. They have certain requirements for where they can invest in and where they can't invest in, and trusting some guy that's well connected in China is a completely different thing than having a fully audited mining farm inside America, that's fully run Western company with open books. So for all of those reasons, I see a big shift happening, and it has been happening for the last year or two, moving out of China, and the mining business getting more heavy in the West.
Okay, so one last question before we wrap things up for you. Decentralization. Is it a meme, or are we ever going to get decentralized hash rate for Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? We have the mining farms consolidating more and more. They're not going to become more decentralized. That's obvious, right? It's always going to become more and more centralized when you look at the mining farms. Then you have the mining pools, which, to be honest, seem to be keeping themselves kind of decentralized, right? You'd think that they'd also consolidate more and more, but so far, it's actually not so bad in the last, 5 years or so. It hasn't gotten any worse, even though the players have changed. So let's see. But they should also consolidate. And then you'll, of course, have also investors, right? When one investor might own several data centers or something. I think it's difficult. We've seen very, very interesting approaches like beta hash protocol, which is implemented in Stratum v2 by the Slush team. Very interesting ideas here to allow mining pools to exist, but to have people direct their hash rate to their node of their choice anyway, to even though the pools are big, and stabilize the income, so that then still there can't be any 51% attacks with that hash rate using the pool. So that's actually really, really great. But otherwise, I see the industry consolidating, and I see the centralization of data centers increasing more and more over time. But if it's a problem, is a different topic, because we shouldn't forget that Bitcoin is fully transparent. Everyone can see whatever is happening. And if, of course, people are watching for this. If anything bad were to happen, if there were like hard forks, double spends, that would be the worst case, or even censorship of transactions that was proven, then there would be that would be an existential threat to Bitcoin, and people would react in kind. There might be algorithm changes or something like this.
Sure.
So I don't see any kind of Bitcoin secretly being subverted and becoming like this evil whatever. I don't think that could happen.
So decentralization is probably not going to happen, but and just if I'm what I'm hearing correctly, it's not necessarily the most important thing, right? Because of the Bitcoin network as it stands now, and the idea and ideals of Bitcoin as it moves forward. So I mean, I think that it's a good.
Also, don't forget that decentralization is different from distribution, right? Like everyone thinks that decentralization is the same as having lots of small little players all playing together, but actually it just means that there's no central point of authority, right? For example, email is obviously decentralized, right? It's a protocol where everyone can start their own email server without needing any kind of permission to do so, but still are using Gmail and Hotmail and whatever. So the same kind of issue as Bitcoin mining, but still email is completely decentralized. And it's great because it's a ground platform where other people can build on top of without needing permission.
Okay, well, Philip, before we send things off here, is there any last thought or last words that you'd like to share with everyone before we wrap up?
I've got nothing too much to add. I'm really, really happy to have this conversation with you, and it's also great to listen to your podcast and to see you kind of jumping around the industry and getting all these insights from different people. I think it's really, really valuable for the whole community, and I thank you very much for taking the time to do that.
Hey, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This was a great talk. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that. And to you listeners out there and viewers of the Hash Rate podcast, thank you guys for tuning into the show. I appreciate you guys continuing to watch and listen. Please make sure that you are subscribing to the podcast on your preferred listening platform. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the notifications so you are always made aware when we go live with new content. And from us here at Hash Rate, talk to you guys all again very soon. Thanks for watching this episode of Hash Rate Podcast, a Hash Rate TV production. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more great content like this every day of the week. In addition, feel free to leave a comment below and let us know who you'd like to see on the next episode of Hash Rate Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you head over to hashrate.com, you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, Difficulty Adjustment. Every Wednesday morning, we provide you with the latest news and information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and mining. Plus, each week, one newsletter subscriber will be selected at random to receive a free Ledger Nano S cryptocurrency wallet. So go ahead and sign up today. Who knows? You may be the next lucky winner. Want more from Hash Rate? Follow Hash Rate TV on Twitter. It's the easiest way to keep track of our newest content all in one place. That's at HASHR8_TV. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Please remember that all content appearing on this or any other Hash Rate channel is strictly for informational and entertainment purposes only. You should not construe any such information as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Consult a licensed financial advisor before investing yours or anyone else's money.